Hunter Craig, first, that hat is awesome, man. I love it. I need to probably get one. Tell me about
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. It's just kind of the epitome of being a dad.
Yeah,
Taking one for the team. In this case, unfortunately, maybe it's some French fries and some milkshakes, but
gotta always have the dad tax. It's always there.
exactly. You just roll with the punches. Love
That's
every
good,
minute of
man.
it.
Well, dude, I've enjoyed, continuing to get to know you. You're right here locally in Colorado, and you're part of the Kinetic Man Network, and now you're part of the Military Investor Network. And man, you're doing some great stuff. You're involved in the community and making some great posts and advice and doing some cool stuff. So I wanted to bring
Yeah,
you on and just kind of highlight you and let's talk about what you got going on. So let's just first start
absolutely.
with a little bit of background about who you are and where you came from.
Yeah, definitely. So originally grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. So, familiar with Colorado in that sense. Being back in the mountains is awesome. From there, went to the Naval Academy straight out of high school. Graduated from there in 2014. Went on to fly for the Navy, going through that whole process. Chose to fly maritime, so started off in the P3, eventually moved over to the P8. And that was an incredible experience, doing multiple deployments to the Middle East, Japan. I spent time out in Turkey. And I really look at my time in the service was kind of that time when we were going up against ISIS and, Iraq and Syria. And over two deployments, I just watched us actually make an impact on kind of whittling them down to, I remember like the last week we were leaving my second deployment. Trump was in his first term and he came on and said, like, we officially defeated ISIS. Uh, you know, sort of.
Yeah.
But it was just really cool to see that all that hard work, that we were doing kind of, at least have some level of an impact. But coming back from there, went on. I did recruiting for the Navy in San
Okay.
Diego, which was awesome, challenging, extremely challenging because it was during COVID.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's just not that propensity to serve anymore.
Mm.
So it was a unique environment.
I bet you that
And
was definitely challenging with COVID.
yeah, oh yeah, it just amplified everything. But I think I learned a lot about myself in that period. No longer was I kind of focused on me and
Mm.
my, ability to fly the airplane. I was now kind of overseeing, 300 sailors across three different states, managing all that, trying to keep people motivated, an extremely trying time. And just kind of given a lot of leeway from my commanding officer and stuff, and just kind of trying to be kind of trying to come up with like unique solutions. And I actually focused on the NROTC scholarship program. So having kind of been familiar with that, it was really cool going to high schools and just kind of giving my experience and my opinion to these, young adults on how they can better their life because I was kind of in the middle of seeing the impact it had on mine. And just, in a sense, giving back to the community was pretty fun.
That's cool, man.
Even though it was challenging. But
Yeah.
yeah, from there I finished off the TACRON 12. So essentially, I was the watch floor officer on an LHA, the USS America to be exact, kind of overseeing the guys, managing the radar scopes and stuff and giving them that pilot perspective. And did my final deployment on that ship, which I'm glad that was my only boat deployment, which was by design.
Yeah.
But we made it through it and it came out, uh, separated in May of 24. And that's when life really hit because,
Mm.
you recognize that, okay, now this is on me
Mm.
to figure this out and make it work. And I had a young family. I just had my second kid. Uh, and we had this kind of desire to leave San Diego. It was just too expensive there. I knew I was going to take a huge pay cut, leaving the Navy in more ways than one. Now I'm paying like more taxes, less income, all the above, and it
Yeah.
just hit real hard. And so I was applying to the airlines and I got a job offer with Southwest and then that quickly deteriorated. You know, the
Mm.
door plug issue and that blew off with Alaska. It just kind of sent the whole market in a tailspin. It went from being like the craziest hiring ever seen to all stop.
Mm.
And that was pretty freaky. Was fortunate enough to get on with Atlas Air. Went and flew 777s with them for a whole 7 months. And then in that time, we decided to move to Denver, Colorado, which, was kind of a big decision. Neither of us are from here. We were kind of taking that leap of faith, if you will, of things will work out. I still had the job offer with Southwest, so maybe, that could work out. You just never know. Um, we kind of established roots here in Littleton, to be exact. And I came home from training in Miami for 3 months with Atlas, updated my application, and the next day, United Airlines was like, "Hey, let's do the interview." So,
That's
things
cool.
worked out. I feel extremely fortunate, especially when I look at a lot of my, peers and kind of the continued challenges they're going through. A lot of people chose to stay in the Navy just because of out of, that fear of like what's next. And it's not easy. So got on with United. That's where I'm at now, and loving every minute of it. So
Cool.
that's kind of like that part. But something I've continued to do through the majority of my career, and we can definitely get more into this, is just real estate investing.
Yeah.
Um, from a young age, I kind of was drawn to it. I remember kind of what really set me off, to be honest, was somebody was like, "Oh, have you ever heard of this or seen this blog, Bigger Pockets?" Like that's what everybody goes to. But seriously, they were kind of like the front runners of this information, and I just started listening to podcasts. And I'd be listening to them while I'm working out, whatever it is, just to kind of like soak up this knowledge. And I feel like just the amount I've kind of developed listening just to that was a ton. And then I started going to in Jacksonville, Florida. I started going to the RIA, the Real Estate Investors Association. And, I met a guy there that was like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." He kind of took me under his wing and was like showing me some, kind of like how he bought homes through wholesalers, whatever, flipped them, turned them into rentals, things like that. And things just started clicking.
Nice.
And so I started just soaking up all this knowledge. Ultimately bought my first home while I was on deployment, uh, sight unseen. I think actually I flew my girlfriend, now wife, up there. I was like, "Hey, you got to go look at this home." I'm like, I'm in Bahrain, and she had no idea what she was doing.
Yeah.
I just kind of was like going off a whim. We bought that place, got a good deal. I think at the closing, I actually got a check for $1,000. So I
Nice.
didn't pay anything. Got paid to buy the house in a sense, just based on how we structured the deal. Uh, and then, I got home from deployment, moved my wife up there, and then we had this just piece of crap house. And we were like, "Oh boy,
Now what?
now what?" I had very limited just experience of handiwork, stuff like that. YouTube's a great thing. And I just started going to town. We that one was more of like a cosmetic flip we were only there for 2 years.
Okay.
Um,
It was a
just
live-in flip.
yeah, it was a live
Nice.
and flip. Uh, and that's kind of what when I was looking at any home I was going to buy, I was like, okay, this thing I got to treat it like an asset, and that's kind of what made sense at the time. It was a small house. It was like 1,100 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath,
Nice.
and we fully did everything into that house. I think I bought it for like 270,000. Just did some like cosmetic stuff, like new bathrooms, new floorings, paint, uh, in and out, and then I redid the kitchen. That was one mistake I made is I redid the kitchen last. So we got to enjoy the kitchen the least amount of time, and that was when I get to my next house. That was the first
Right.
thing I did.
Nice.
So bought the house for 270, and I think I sold it for like 395 2 years later. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so that was kind of like my first stepping stone, if you will, to be like, okay, you can make this work. Like you can, I was paying for my housing, if you will, while kind of like using this investment to do so. Um, we took that money once we figured out we were going to San Diego and like, all right, great. Now we're going to this extremely expensive
Yeah.
market. And it was right at the beginning of COVID. Everybody was just bidding over, houses like crazy. My wife was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do the live and flip. And every house we looked at was just so expensive. And I was like, I think we gotta do this again. Like if we want to make this work, if we won't don't just want to rent, whatever. And it obviously like you're super nervous because you're going through COVID, you don't know what's gonna happen. Everybody, since Kingdom Come has been calling for a recession and a
Mhm.
crash.
Yeah.
That didn't come. That was the complete opposite.
Right.
I'm glad I made that call and found a place there in San Diego. It was a beautiful place. It was like on almost an acre with a view, but we bought it from like the original owners that died in the house.
Oh, wow.
So this house looked like it had been untouched for like decades. Um, and it had so much potential. And we were going to be in San Diego for 4 years. So luckily I had that cash from the previous house.
Yeah.
I was, and once again, I was able to leverage the VA loan, which I did on my previous home.
Nice.
Um, low cash down, and then just take that extra money, and I just started going to town again. And this one was far more work, and took probably the full 4 years to make it happen. But we went from ripping out walls, doing full plumbing, electrical, all the like cosmetic stuff as well. But like I was like reframing the bathrooms, the master bathroom, all of that. And then I even decided to build a pool myself. So that was an experience and a half.
Wow.
But it turned out awesome. And that was kind of the fun thing too, is that like, okay, now we have this home that there's no way we would have been able to afford had we just come in and bought it as is, like
Right.
as I had made it. But, we were able to enjoy this. And I think that was really cool to kind of go through that process. And I learned so much.
Oh, I'm sure.
I think big thing was just leveraging other people, around me that had the knowledge and just kind of going through that process and trying to enjoy it. That's the hard part is it's hard to enjoy it in the moment. But
Yeah, living in a house under construction all the time, probably there's some challenges, especially for, with having young kids and a spouse and
oh,
but dude,
absolutely.
I mean, it sounds
Luckily,
all worth it.
luckily, I was able to somehow finish the majority of the projects before my first daughter was born.
Okay. Nice.
Um, which was hard because my wife was pregnant, like very pregnant, and I'm out there shoveling dirt, and she's just, like, "Where's my pampering?" I'm like, uh, trust me, well, it'll be good in the end.
Yeah,
So,
it's all worth it.
yeah, like,
Promise.
but yeah, and that was a good experience. But
That's cool, man. Well, and you got a little side hustle going on too in the lending world.
Mhm.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So once I moved here, I've always had that itch to kind of get more into the real estate world. I've seen a lot of my friends become real estate agents or, things of that nature, or maybe they go full in and they're doing like syndications and operating as a general partner or something like that. And these were all things I considered. I really looked at the real estate agent stuff, but I was like, I just don't know if that quite jives or is like very symbiotic with what I'm trying to do in the airlines. I think somebody that's got maybe just a little bit more time and is around a little bit more
Yeah.
would be maybe a little bit more qualified to do that. And so what really kind of set me off on this path was when I purchased this home here in Colorado. Working with my lender, it was a family friend recommended to me, and and that's like, oh, this guy's great. It's like, okay. Well, I kind of had a unique situation where I had a ton of cash from when I purchased when I sold my last house,
Yeah.
and I still wanted to take a loan out. I didn't want to buy a house in cash, and so we were trying to figure out how to make this work. Well, my challenge was I was going from the Navy where I had solid income to now starting at Atlas, and I was taking over a 50% pay cut.
Mm,
And so I couldn't qualify for this home that I wanted on my own. And so I had to bring on a co-borrower, and I luckily my father-in-law was willing to do that for me. Um, but it made things more challenging.
for sure.
Now, it's just different. And so I had this lender that was like, "Oh yeah, you're going to do the VA loan. It's going to be good." And he kind of sent me down this path. And we're in escrow, which is, I was doing a fast escrow too. I think I was doing like a 21 day close. Um, and we're like a week out, and he's like, "Hey, the VA loan's not going to work." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And
Mm,
then I started doing research, and I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." Well, actually, first he kept saying, "I think it's going to work," and I was came to him and I was like, "I don't think this is going to work because my father-in-law is not military. He doesn't have a VA benefit.
right.
You can't. It won't work. The VA only guarantees the portion for the actual VA borrower."
Yeah, for the veteran. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, for the veteran. And so we went back and forth, and then he's like, "No, let's just see what the underwriter says." I'm like, "I don't like this. Like, we just need to switch to conventional because I was now days out from my loan contingency,
Mm,
and I had put $25,000 down as earnest money." So I'm like, this is a small amount of change. Like, this money's on the line." Well, we actually wound up going beyond my loan contingency by a day. Thank goodness I had, good sellers that I was working with because they could have just got up and been like, "Thanks for the money,
yeah,
you
right.
on to the next." But we were able to get it switched to conventional. The rate like went up 1.5% from what I was expecting. So now I'm like stuck with this higher payment. The whole thing was just so unnecessarily stressful. And the whole point of telling you that story is that I saw somebody that they may be good, but they didn't seem to be very resourceful. They didn't understand kind of the uniqueness of maybe the VA loan product as much as I thought. I just assumed that they would know.
Right.
And it created a lot of stress for me. And so I met this guy who's also a pilot that owns one of the best VA loan brokerages in the country. In fact, he's like the number one VA loan originator in the country over the last 5 years. And I just kind of started talking to him, and he kind of became my mentor. And ultimately, I was like, you know what? I've always really enjoyed the finance side of every deal I've done and kind of being creative, finding that creative solution, being resourceful, knowing who to ask, who to lean on, because there's no way you're going to know every single product out there. And I was like, why don't I give this a try?
Mm,
It's something that I can do. The brokerage I work for now has a great team. Somebody that's like kind of like their whole thing is having the resources available to you. And I was like, hey, if I can do it just even a little bit better than that guy, then, I can at least be helping others with all the experience and knowledge that I've learned over the 10 years I've been investing, and just try to like actually bring something more to the community, because of really the power of the VA loan and how much it helped me.
yeah.
So I thought, why can't I do this? Why can't I, be somebody that could kind of show somebody the ropes? And so I've started to do that, and it's been pretty fun.
That's
So
awesome, man. Dude, I love
yeah,
that. And I love just kind of your story and just how you have just plugged into education, plugged into network, plugged into resources with just like the
absolutely.
can do attitude and just made things happen, right? And
Yep.
there's some stress involved in it, some, probably some early mornings, late nights, low sleep
Oh
count,
yeah.
like
Doing
I mean,
plumbing at 3 a.m. is like the least ideal thing, but if you want water, you got to do it.
yeah. Oh, dude, that's awesome. Talk to me about, you mentioned kind of the struggle with the transition from real estate, but talk to me about maybe some of those lessons learned from from your military days that have transitioned well to, this world that you're in now, both the airline world and just the entrepreneur real estate investing world, VA loan world, lending world. Like what are some
Totally.
things that come to mind?
I'd say there's really two things that really stand out to me. And you kind of hit on one already, but first one I'll say is perseverance.
Mm,
going through real estate investing, just kind of starting off, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
There's so many shiny objects. There's so
Yeah.
many like different ways to do it. There's different types of real estate. There's, flips, rentals, short-term rentals, midterm rentals, apartment complexes, private investors, like the list goes on.
For sure.
And so I think for me, it was just kind of like trying to find something that sounds interesting and sticking with it. And that's kind of what I did with the live and flip, at least for the first 6 years. And that paid off really well. But not only that part, it's that it was really hard going through it.
Mm.
I had people second guessing me what I was doing. My family members like, "What are you doing?" I had my girlfriend and then wife that was kind of like, "Hey, this is stressful," and that's stressful to me. Um, but me just being like, "Hey, like I see where this is going,"
Yeah.
and just sticking with it and grinding it out, like actually grinding it out as putting all that sweat equity into these properties because uh it's not easy, and that's really one of those things that going through the military, because I was going through the military at the same time as this.
Right.
Um, going on deployments, getting qualified in the aircraft, was plane commander, mission commander, all these things. And, I think just seeing that, hey, you put in the work, the results will follow.
Mm.
And staying consistent. So just persevering through all of those, things that just come at you. And you may have to pivot a little bit here and there, but you're kind of rolling with the punches, if you will. So that's probably the one thing that I think has really set me apart and just kind of allowed me to progress. And then the other one, like you said, is the networking.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I was in pretty large squadrons. I think just our wardroom was usually like 65 to 70 depending. So it's a pretty large squadron. And going through like the upgrade process and learning the aircraft and all those things, you're leaning on all your peers as you're going through this. The ones that tried to do it themselves or, just kind of become the recluse, if you will, they were struggling. And we would almost have to go to them, pull them out of their hole
Yeah.
and be like, you're not going to be successful if you do that. Like, come this way. And so I kind of found that similar, kind of sense in real estate. And I've been a part of another military network that's, has been amazing, and that kind of really set me off. And then, meeting you and finding what you're doing is just kind of you keep finding these groups that have the same mentality, the same goals, and hopefully you're attracted to that and vice versa. And it just grows because now you're able to rely on others that have either walked the walk, have the knowledge, and because there's no way you're going to know everything. And you're always going to be hit with different challenges, obstacles, or whatever. And so hopefully you can have that network, that base to rely, to kind of lean on. And I found that to be extremely helpful.
Dude, that's so good. Yeah, man. I mean, business, entrepreneurship, investing, real estate, like it's a team sport. Like I found
100%.
that you cannot do it alone. Absolutely. And the more people you have in your hip pocket, your network, um, I think the more success you're gonna have. So like I agree
Absolutely.
1,000%. It's like getting in these groups, getting in these networks, learning
Mhm.
from each other, helping each other. It's where it's at, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about kind of your own investments. I mean, it sounds like
Totally.
you've had some pretty good ones, in the live and
And some
flip
bad ones.
world, and some bad ones. So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So, best investment. What's the best investment you've ever had?
Honestly, the best investment was that last house that I flipped.
Okay,
Um,
the one in
I
San Diego.
the one in San
Okay,
Diego. I was fortunate that there was some crazy appreciation during that time.
yeah,
So, that was me just kind of taking that leap of faith and trying to understand like, hey, a bunch of money's being pumped into the market. Like, I don't foresee a crash. Like, things are going to inflate.
yeah,
And so, we just rolled with it. But, I bought that house, I think, for like 760,000. I put like 200,000 into it,
yeah.
but I wound up selling it for 1.35.
That's
And
awesome.
this house never even hit the market. I sold it off the market, and like it was just it was so easy because I knew the product that I had put together was like far superior than anything else out there.
Dude, and that's all tax free, right? Because you lived in it for for two
Yep.
years, right? So like, dude,
All tax free.
this is an amazing strategy. VA loan, so like basically no money out of pocket to buy the house.
Yep.
You live in it for 2 years. You buy a property that needs work. You live in it for two
Exactly.
years. You fix it up, and then you sell it after 2 years of living in it.
Yep.
And you've put some sweat equity into it. You put some money to force appreciate it, and then you sell it, and that's all tax free because you've lived in it for 2 years. It's
Yep.
an amazing strategy.
Exactly. Yeah. And I had like just the whole experience. And it's not only that, like you're the money side of it. It's that now I built this really nice home that I now get to enjoy.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a way to like kind of one better your lifestyle, if you will, but
Mhm.
also taking your home and actually truly making it an asset.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of arguments on whether your personal home is a liability or an asset, but the way I was doing it, I felt like I was truly trying to dig into like, hey, this is an asset and treating it as such.
Oh, that's good, man.
So,
What about your worst? You said you had a few bad ones.
yeah, it's the one I'm dealing with right now. So uh bought this. Well, so let me back up. So I partnered on this deal, and it's a great couple. They're awesome. And it was a deal that was actually brought to us through our last network. It was a crazy story. So the beginning of the deal was great. This guy that was in this kind of, we call it real estate accelerator, he was just making crazy deals on like everything and anything he could find. And he found these townhomes in Florida that just weren't selling. It was this like foreign developer that was kind of shady. And then they were just trying to fire sell the properties. So he came in and was like, hey, I'll buy all 11 for a steep discount. And his plan was, he got that under contract. And then his plan was to wholesale them off.
Okay.
So this guy, for him, the deal was phenomenal. I
Yeah.
mean, this was his first wholesale deal ever, multi-million-dollar contract. And then he turned around and sold each property for a $45,000 wholesale fee.
Wow.
So he made like 500K for, I don't know, a month's worth of work
Yeah.
and sold it to 11 investors within this group. Um, and then the plan was that, hey, this is in Daytona Beach. The regulations are already there for short-term rentals. Uh, you know, and it's going to be great. So he furnished them. He was like, I'll manage them for you. He already had a couple other properties he was doing in Daytona. So he had a little bit of, experience. We're like, okay, like we believe you. Um, and then off we go. Well, the renters don't come, and here we are stuck holding the bag of this house that, is just costing us money every month. And what we decided to do was fire him as the manager
Mm.
and start self-managing. Well, that alone turned the property around.
Okay.
We became like what the top 5% in the area. We went in and we actually had to spend like another $20,000 on furnishing it because they did not do a good job. Um, and then now we're like, oh, we're off to the races. Well, here we are about 2 years later, and uh, it's just still not going quite as we want. Like we're breaking even every month. Some months are negative. Some months are positive, like around the Daytona 500
Yeah.
weekend like that. But it's just not going the way we want, and it's still kind of like that. And looking back, we're like, okay, what did we do wrong? Well, there's a couple things I just don't think we would have known. And that was coming off the, COVID time when short-term rentals were just booming.
Yeah.
So
Right.
all this data that we were kind of analyzing to justify the purchase was kind of coming off the tail ends of all this COVID data
Mm.
that frankly was inflated, like high occupancy, high average daily rates, all these things that made it seem like this was going to be a killer deal. Well, that stuff really tapered off.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like we've been putting all this work and effort into trying to kind of keep this property alive because now it's a horrible time to sell,
Mm.
especially in Florida. And so now we're just kind of hoping that things turn around and we can continue to kind of like boost occupancy and hopefully, I fully expect we're going to take a loss when we sell it, but it's kind of just like trimming the fat off of my overall investment portfolio. Um, sometimes you just got to cut your losses.
Yeah.
So we're kind of trying to work it towards that point. There's been, and I will say there has been some benefits to it. And this is a strategy that I've learned relatively recently, finally put it into use, and that's bonus depreciation,
Mm,
segregating. And because we manage this property ourselves, and it's a short-term rental, so you're renting it less than 7 days at a time, you can qualify that as active income because you're actively managing it. It's not like a passive rental, long
right.
term, midterm, where it's always going to be in that passive income bucket. Well, now this short term rental is in an active income bucket. And so we're able to go in, qualify as, I guess, real estate professionals, if you will, because we're the primary managers doing over, I think it's like 100 hours or whatever on the property. So now we go in, we pay a cost segregation comes in, they analyze the property, figure out, hey, this is all the depreciable assets based on whatever time frame. And then you're able to bonus depreciate that, something that Trump put into law, I think, in his first term, and then got reinstated with the big, beautiful bill. Uh, and so we're like, I had known this for years, but I was like, now I finally get to use it. And I'm actually using it on my taxes for 24, and I paid zero taxes.
That's amazing, man.
So at least that part
Yeah.
good. It still doesn't
Which,
make
if you think about
overall.
it, dude, if you think about it, like, as an airline pilot, like that's active income, you're making a decent paycheck there. Like
Exactly.
reducing those taxes is probably way better and higher of an ROI than anything else.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think especially as you get, into those higher pay scales, it makes even more sense. Or even just to knock yourself down
Yeah.
a few tax brackets is
Yeah,
huge.
for sure, man.
But yeah, this has been a challenging one.
There's lessons in all of it, dude. It just,
Yeah, and that is another thing that I think has value is the lessons you learn along the way
yeah,
is just doing it, just going for it. You
yeah,
may screw it up, it may suck, but I know what not to do next time.
that's right.
So that
That's right.
helps.
And you're still young, man, and you got lots of years of investing and business experience to go. So,
Yep.
all right, for sake of time, so advice for your 20-year-old self. What would, if you had to do it all over again, what would you give yourself advice on?
I wish I would have just shot my shot a lot earlier. I
Mm,
wish I would have started taking more risk earlier. I felt like I spent 5 years just reading and learning and maybe like kind of looking at deals and kind of doing this. And I think I was just nervous the whole time. But I'm
yeah.
like, that was the time when I was single, didn't have kids. Like that was the time to start like just going all out.
Well, and a guaranteed W-2 paycheck from the Navy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I had a guaranteed job. I really liked the idea of the house hacking, whether it was the flipping, like in live in flips, or really I wish I would have just bought a property at every single station I went to
Yeah,
when I was in flight school. I mean, I was in Pensacola, Corpus Christi, Jacksonville, Florida, all these places. Had I just bought one along the way,
and rented out
which
the rooms.
100% could have done, even with the VA loan,
Yep.
you can have multiple properties under one VA certificate of eligibility. So, I just didn't know these things, but still, I wish I would have just kind of started a little bit sooner. And that's kind of what I try to tell people when I talk to them, especially when I find, these individuals that are young or even not even young, like just if they're still like kind of one toe in, one toe out, I'm like, just
Yeah.
go for it.
Just go for it. That's good, man.
So it's the biggest one.
What would you ask from our network? What would you ask from the members of the Military Investor Network and those that are going to watch this?
Honestly, I would just say the biggest thing is just stay involved.
Mm,
Um, you know, everybody's going to have, whether it's opportunities or advice or whatever, it may not be what you're looking for, but just kind of learning, supporting one another, offering those pieces of advice. And I think you do a fantastic job with just kind of bringing up ideas or even presenting like deals. And I've seen some other people, posting a few items of like maybe things they're struggling with or, hey, how would you approach this? I think that's so valuable and kind of really the whole purpose of any network is just to leverage each other.
yeah.
Everybody's going to have their own level of expertise or whatever have you. And if, might as well leverage everybody. that's kind of what we're here for. So
That's great advice, man. Yeah, I've been a part of networks before and paid a lot of money, and did not put in the effort that I should have, and I didn't get out.
yeah.
You
And
know,
even
I was
even me, it's hard to, there'll be like weeks that'll go by and I'm like, man, I see all these posts and I want to, participate, but then I get sidetracked with whatever.
yeah,
And so I've been trying to be better about just setting aside some time to like actually devote to just kind of being involved in the community.
that's
Uh,
good.
and so that's kind of the biggest thing.
I love that, dude. Well,
Yeah.
I'm appreciative that you are a part of the community and you are offering value. And man, you've done some great stuff and learned a lot of lessons that you can offer value to the community. And I appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, same Stu. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for coming on.
All right. See you
See ya.
later.